One thing that frustrates me, Phyllis, is to find out that something is not what it seemed to be in the first place.
Like when the bus you waited for 20 minutes is a chartered? This program of The Third Story is about honesty. We're going to see a story about an amazing rescue. We'll find out about pearls.
And we'll see a person take an honest look at himself when the doctor tells him that he has a major illness. But first, a frustrated farmer in his corn patch.
Hey, come over here. I want to show you something. This is an ear of corn, right? A nice, fresh ear of corn. I just finished picking it. Suppose I pull all these husks off. What am I going to find inside? I know what you're thinking. You can see it already. A nice yellow corn cob. Just like you see in them ads in those household magazines. Mouth-watering. Neat rows of kernels. Hang on while I take all the wraps off. Wormy, which goes to show you, what you see on the outside doesn't always line up with what you find on the inside. Too bad, isn't it?
I know just how he feels. We'll be back with more stories.
Truth is very special. We could say it's precious, like something valuable. In a way, it's like a beautiful pearl.
For centuries, the pearl was regarded as the king of gems. It is only as the diamond has become more popular that the pearl has moved to second place, but it is still valued very highly. The ancients thought that a pearl was formed from tears or dewdrops. Eventually, they became aware that it is formed from calcium, the same substance as is in the shell of the oyster. The life story of a pearl is very interesting. Really, it begins as a problem to an oyster, that is. Here's what happens. An oyster lies on the floor of the ocean, tucked away in his shell. Somehow, a grain of sand finds its way into the shell and gets lodged inside. Or maybe a bug drills its way through the shell and digs into the fleshy part of the oyster. The oyster may seem like a dumb, unfeeling creature, but he knows that he's got problems. He gets upset with the intruder, but he can't push it out, so he learns to live with it. To ease the irritation, he begins to cover the grain of sand or bug with a coat of calcium carbonate. He produces layer after layer until his trouble spot is up to several millimeters across. Actually, he has just made a pearl. What began as a source of discomfort has become a thing of beauty. And if you were to cut the pearl in half, you would find the problem object in the center. Some pearls are irregular and defective. The really precious ones are shaped beautifully, sometimes with lovely colors in them. A natural pearl is formed when a foreign object just happens to get inside the shell. A cultured pearl, on the other hand, is deliberately instigated by man. A skilled surgeon carefully opens the shell, slits open the fleshy part of the oyster, and plants a calcium bead inside. The shell is closed again, and the oyster has an irritation. To it, the bulky bead is the same as if a human being were to carry a stone the size of a football inside the body. The oyster is now treated with great care to encourage the best possible formation of a pearl. Again, this foreign object is coated by the oyster with a layer of calcium. When it is about 7 years old, the pearl is removed and sold. From all of this irritation and effort, something very valuable has been produced, and the pearl becomes someone's prized possession.
It's hard to be honest all the time. Somehow we're easily tempted to be dishonest when we've done something wrong. And, like our friend the professor, we suffer the consequences. There's a kind of honesty that runs deep. It shows up when we accept truths for ourselves, and no matter what happens, we live by those truths.
Dirk Willems was a man with that kind of honesty. He discovered the things he believed most strongly in the Bible. This led him to do something almost unbelievable.
In Bible times, if people wanted to describe something that was extremely valuable, they compared it to a pearl. Pearls had a very special place in the hearts of people. They were worth money, but people also found them to be very beautiful. People who had pearls handled them over and over, looking at them very carefully. They were considered to be the loveliest of all possessions. A merchant would go out and scour the markets of the world to find the most beautiful pearls. One day, when Jesus was describing the kingdom of heaven, he said, "It's like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he finds one of great value, he sells everything he has and buys it. It becomes that important to him." The kingdom of heaven is like that. A person must be willing to give up everything to follow Jesus. This isn't always easy, but it's worth it. And there is something beautiful and precious about such a life of self-denial and obedience. One person who felt very strongly this way was a man by the name of Dirk Willems. He lived in the 1500s at a time when it could be very costly to be a follower of Christ. Dirk loved the Bible. He followed it as closely as possible. The leaders in his community were very upset with him for this and had him thrown into prison. In those days, they imprisoned and sometimes even tortured Christians. One day, Dirk escaped from prison. It was the middle of winter. He ran across a thin covering of ice on a river with pursuers chasing him. He made it across the river to safety and could have been free except for one thing. One of the people chasing him broke through the ice and was in danger of drowning. Now, Dirk was a man of deep honesty. He practiced what he read in the Bible. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. His enemy desperately needed help, and Dirk made his decision. He left the safety he had found, went back to his pursuer, pulled him out of the water, and saved his life. Dirk himself was not so fortunate. His pursuer was anxious to let him go free, but the authorities felt otherwise. They seized Dirk again, and in spite of his kind deed, he was burned at the stake. In one way, Dirk's action didn't make sense, losing his life to save an enemy. But on the other hand, Dirk lived by the Bible. Doing God's will was more important to him than saving his own life. And besides, for him, dying meant going to heaven. That's the kind of thing Jesus meant when he said that the kingdom of heaven is like owning a valuable pearl.
Now there's someone who lived what he believed.
We'll be back with some more stories. One of the hardest times to be honest is when you're faced with something you fear.
Our next story is about Jake Falk, the pastor of a church. He tells what it was like when he got the word from a doctor that he had cancer. Here it is in his own words.
One of the rewarding things is to know that you're doing that which God would like you to do. So for us, the movement into ministry was very definitely a sense of God's call upon our lives, and related to that would be the reward of knowing that what I'm doing has value beyond this life. In the summer of 1981, I seemed to have fluid accumulating in my inner ear and had been seeing an ear, nose, and throat specialist on numerous occasions in the course of the summer, and all the attention he gave me didn't seem to clear up the problem. So he said, I think maybe we'll have to do a biopsy. I guess Jesse sensed a bit of an urgency there when I told her that he was going to do it so soon. And he said, it's what I was afraid it would be. It's cancer of the nasal pharynx, and the radiology department will contact you, and you're going to have to have radiation treatments. And that's all he said, and he walked out of the room, leaving the two of us to ourselves.
I was afraid even to hear the word cancer, and now he told us my husband had cancer. Well, it was very shocking news to hear it. We were stunned, and so we sat there without saying a word to each other for quite some time. We have a custom that we read the Bible together, and that Saturday before Sunday when Jake went in for his biopsy, I believe it was God that gave me these verses from 2 Corinthians 1. We were really crushed and overwhelmed and feared we would never live through it. We felt we were doomed to die and saw how powerless we were to help ourselves, but that was good. For then we put everything into the hands of God, who alone can save us, for he can even raise the dead. And this has been very great to me.
The following Sunday, I just told the congregation what had happened, and they found it helpful, I think, in relating to me, that I was very open and honest about it immediately and mentioned my illness by name, and told the congregation, too, that the path ahead was unknown, but it wouldn't be an easy path. I sometimes try to imagine what it would be like not to be part of a Christian community or church, call it a church family. I think my family knows me as an active person who gets involved with the family. We like going on outings and taking drives and canoeing and golfing. And some of these things, while I hope that eventually I'll be able to do them again, have been put on hold. And it kind of disrupts your family life that way too. My cancer is so close to my brain, it also affects me in that I can't do any significant amount of reading. And that also applies to the Bible. But that doesn't mean to say that I haven't relied heavily on it. And fortunately, I've memorized significant sections of it. I found particularly helpful during my radiation treatments, and you have to experience it to know what I'm talking about. When you're strapped down on the treatment table and you have a plastic mold over your head that's fitted to the contours of your face and everything, you're bolted down so that you cannot move even a millimeter because the rays have to hit the exact spot. If you've got problems with claustrophobia, well, that's where you would get it. And you have to just kind of relax and tell yourself, I'm in the hands of God here. He is all-powerful. But the moment the technicians would have bolted me down and walked out of the room and closed the door and would turn the machine on, I would start reciting a psalm. And I already knew how far I would get in the psalm by the time the switch would go and they would come back again. The sovereignty of God, or the absolute power of God, is something I preached and I believed in and I still do. But when you have cancer, you ask yourself, and how does God's sovereignty, his absolute power, come to bear on my problem? Does he have absolute power? Does he have power over my cancer? And can he really heal? And if so, will he heal? Does he heal? Does he care enough to heal? People have said to, my own children have said, hey, Dad, isn't that just a cop-out for lack of faith when you say, is it your will? Should we not just ask God and expect him, or kind of demand, God, you must heal? You've said you're going to answer prayer. What do you do with that? And I've said to people, yes, the Bible speaks about faith, but faith means more than just getting a hold of an idea, hanging on to it tenaciously, and saying, God, you have to deliver. The experience of me coping with cancer has, I think, opened up areas of ministry that one might not have had otherwise. one of the areas I think has been right here in our home, to our children. To have our children see how we cope with the very real possibility that this may be the end of life. But other people have come in to our home too, from our own church, from the community, and we have sensed through their comments later on that unknowingly we've had a very significant ministry in their lives. When they expected us to be down in the dumps and really discouraged, they found us finding real comfort and strength in God. My urging to people is always turn your life over from you controlling it to Jesus Christ controlling it. Now that takes a very deliberate step, an act of the will. And I can talk to him about my need. I don't have to twist his arm. I think I've told people on numerous occasions, I, in all of this, never forget that God is a Father. When I think of the Christian's eternal hope, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I will meet a person. That Jesus Christ is not just an idea we've had here, we've talked about, but he's a person who lived, who died for me, who rose again, and who is in fact waiting for me and will welcome me. I've never had the red carpet treatment in my life, but the way I understand Scripture, that will be a red carpet treatment that I'll get. It's kind of like God saying, yes, I know there's a road up ahead. There's a curve around that road. You don't know what's around the curve, I know. But to try to explain it to you, you wouldn't be able to grasp it. Why don't you take my hand and we'll walk around the curve together?
A few months after that film was made, Jake Falk died. He has left us with a story of hope and something important to think about.
We'll be back with more of the third story. The third story is about people and lessons from life around us. These stories have been put together to help us think about God and what He wants us to do with our lives.
We have a free gift. It's the Third Story Survival Kit. There are lots of things in it that we think you'd find helpful.
There's a survival poster, a story that tells you how to get to know God, a book of the Bible, a coupon for a free Bible study, and some activities. Send us a story about yourself, or just write to The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. We look forward to hearing from you.
Here's what someone in Ontario wrote. I enjoy your program very much. It deals with reality, everyday life problems, and gives good advice, often causing us to take a look at our own lives and see how we can improve ourselves. Best of all, you put God at the center of things and teach us to work out our problems using Him and His Word as our guide.
Isn't that encouraging?
One day wondering who I was, I asked my mom and dad because I want to be like them in many ways. They told me no one's quite the same. I had their love and my own name, but I was wondering still for many days. And I'm asking who I am and who I'm gonna be, and who are other people going to see. And I'm asking who I am and who I'm gonna be, and who are other people going to see. One day deep in thought again, I saw the pictures of the men and women people go for miles to see. The movie stars who are here today, the hockey heroes when they play, the super rock and rolling kings and queens. And I'm asking who I am and who I'm gonna be, and who are other people going to see. And I'm asking who I am and who I'm gonna be, and who are other people going to see.
We all like it when things really are what they seem to be, when actions match up with words.
The best place to find honesty is with God. Let Him come into your life and help you be honest. You can come to Him by praying at any time.
Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Days went by in questioning, the answers different people bring, the famous and the friendly and the wise. But when I read the holy book, the word God's image made me look and see myself through Jesus' loving eyes. Once I wondered who I was, and now I'm finding out because I'm following the Lord in all His ways. He gives me love and my own name, for God made no one quite the same, and He knows what I need through all my days.